We had a great night at the polls. If you are a conservative and you are against the things that this government is doing now, we took a step towards sanity, a big step towards sanity last night. However, let's remember that we still have the Biden administration in power, which means, just what's happening in Glasgow today, which we'll tell you about tomorrow, that is going to affect every American citizen. The things that they're doing with energy is remarkable. The things they're not doing on the supply chain, also remarkable. And we're going to have shortages. And Carol Roth, who is the author of The War on Small Business, she's a former investment banker. She is cut from the same cloth, I think, that I am. And she is looking at what is coming and seeing some real problems. And I wanted to get her on because we are entering the holidays. And I don't want people to hoard things, but I do want you to be prepared. And so I asked Carol to look into this, and she joins us now. Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm doing well, Glenn. It's very well said. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. It's a good old Boy Scouts mantra, isn't it?
So the things that, we are going to be facing energy shortages, I think. And if it is very, very cold, I think we're going to see a repeat of what we had here in Texas around the country, or we could. The things that people are saying right now, the energy issue is one of the things, but also water. And I don't understand the water issue. Why are people saying there's a water shortage?
Well, I always like to follow the money. I know it's something that you're very keen on. And if you look at what's been happening over the past several years, you have really big pools of money, institutional investors, hedge funds, who have been buying up land that has water rights associated with it. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have institutional investors going to something that everyone thinks is a commodity and buying it up, that's forward thinking that maybe something's going on. And with population growth and obviously all the issues that we have just in terms of governments and their mismanagement, there are a lot of people who are very concerned, both short-term and long-term, about water shortages. So I think it's really imperative that everybody, like you said, you don't have to go out and hoard. And in fact, Costco won't let you do it. They've already put a limit on it. But every time you go to the store, purchase some extra water. Get to the point where you have at least a gallon a day per person in your household for at least a month, because this is an issue. Yeah. Yes, because if this is something that happens, you're going to want to have that extra preparation, and there could be a short-term implication because of the supply chain, but I am deeply concerned based on all of this investment that's been going on longer term.
So I had a billionaire friend of mine say to me, 12, 15 years ago, Glenn, you got to buy water.
Yeah.
And I said, why do I feel like I'm sitting here with Rockefeller in 1900 when he said buy oil? And he said, because it is. It's going to be as precious as oil is. And he said, but don't buy water. Don't buy water per se. He said, buy the things that will help filter water, invest in. He said, because otherwise, if you are the water baron, he said, you're going to be as unpopular as any of these oil people are now.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And so that's another good backup thing that you can purchase for your own household is to get a supply of water filters. But you're right, from an investment thesis standpoint, there are all the kinds of technologies that are being developed, things for the desalinization of water and whatnot. So that's definitely something to consider. You know who's really focused on this too? Michael Burry, if any of you watched The Big Short.
Yes.
He was one of the first guys to call the mortgage crisis. And that's where he's been investing as well.
So I don't understand, where is the water shortage coming from, though? I mean, we've got water.
Well, we don't have as much that's usable as everybody thinks, and
Well, I mean, places in California don't because they haven't built a reservoir since
Right.
1972.
Exactly. They haven't been investing in some of these arenas that are required in order to make sure that you keep the water. And we also have population growth. And you have to remember, it's not just the major consumption of water individually, but 70% of the water that's used is for food, which goes into sort of the next issue is if you're going down the chain, you don't just want to have water, you want to make sure that you have access to food. And as you mentioned with California is a huge source and supplier of our food, here in the U.S. as well as throughout the world.
And I'm really concerned because I just saw again yesterday a story about Bill Gates buying up farmland, saying that he's got these little farms, they're not going to be sustainable, and so he's helping by buying them all up.
Super helpful, don't you think?
Yeah, super helpful.
Yeah,
super helpful.
So also things that on your own land, if you have access to seeds and things where you can also grow your own healthful food, that's important, as well as the perishables or the non-perishables to be able to have a stock and supply of that.
So coming from you, this rings differently. I mean, I'm a prepper and been prepared for a while, but you don't strike me as a prepper in the classic sense of, 2008, you were saying this.
Yeah, so I always call myself like a mini prepper. So I'm always suspicious that there's something that's going on, but I don't have an underground bunker, so I'm sort of somewhere in between the two. But I do follow trends, and I do follow the money, and it's unfortunately it's a moral issue, right? Things that are used to sustain us, water and food, that these shouldn't be treated like investment commodities, but that's sort of the outgrowth of what's happened from all of the terrible policy that we've seen from the government and the Fed.
The guy who services my car said, "Hey, I bought some extra air filters for your car," and I was like, "Thanks." And he said, no, there's a shortage coming of air filters. He said, you want this. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. But that not only is for air filters for your car, if you have a problem with HVAC or any of this stuff, you're going to have a hard time. You should get it checked now, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I actually spoke to the head of maintenance of a huge food service operation, as well as some other experts, and they're saying to have your HVAC system inspected now for any impending failures, because one of the things that's happening in terms of the supply chain, we all know the supply chain is a mess, but any parts that are coming out, the priority is being given to new products instead of to repair shops. So repairs are kind of down on the food chain, down on the totem pole, so to speak, in terms of getting things. So have that looked at, have them look at coils that might be leaking refrigerant, things that are easy to spot, and get yourself in the queue now and a patch until those needed parts arrive. And if you have an old refrigerator, or if you have a refrigeration system that's necessary to store something like life-saving medicine, it probably makes sense to also invest in one of those mini fridges, the kind that you can get for a dorm or that you see in a hotel. Yeah. Anything that if you've got a life-saving issue or you've got an appliance that's old, like you want to get in that queue now because, think about it, we're headed for most of the country into really cold weather. You want to get out ahead of the curve for sure.
So medicine is one of those things that I don't think we've learned our lesson on.
Correct.
COVID came and, we all realized, oh, crap, we don't make our medicine here. And I don't think anything's being done. But how do you store up on medicine?
So that's a really good question because it depends on, if you have medicine that you can only get via prescription and that, you're requiring to go through your insurance. I would say the number one thing that you can do is not wait until you're at the end of your refill cycle. So if you kind of are in that cycle where every month you buy something and they open it up for insurance on week 3. Always week 3 go in for sure, but to the extent that you can ask for a larger supply from your doctor, go to your doctor, say you're concerned, can you write me a prescription for a 3-month supply or a 4-month supply, and if you have the financial wherewithal, even if you have to pay for it out of pocket, it's obviously worth that extra expense to not be in a scenario where you go to your pharmacy and they're say, we're sorry, but it's not just the medicine itself, it's the compounds. We couldn't get those compounds because they were coming from China or, whatever the reason is. So anything that's important to your life, that will, especially if it's life critical, but anything that, you may have an issue with if you don't have access to, you don't need to hoard it, but slowly start building a backup. First aid kits, batteries, toothpaste, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you have something because that supply chain is so disrupted, not just for that end product, but for all the components that are going into it.
Is this going to affect turkeys? And I mean, I know we're going to have problems with the supply chain for Christmas, or I hope we don't, but likely we will. How about the food for Thanksgiving?
Get your turkey now. I just heard, I was on a program right after the CEO of Butterball, and especially if you want a smaller turkey, and we know the prices of everything have gone through the roof for inflation, so that big turkey may be, outside of the budget.
Jeez.
Go get it now. Put your name on a list if you have to, or put it in your freezer or whatnot, but get that. And then the other thing I will say, and I know that you've been very focused on this, Glenn, is anything that comes in an aluminum can, that has been a huge shortage. So if you want your beer or if you want your canned cranberry sauce that you just love that comes in an aluminum can, go get that now because that's another area that we have a shortage.
So I heard that from a couple of sources, and I couldn't verify, and I was trying to look online. I heard, go buy anything that you like that are in cans.
Correct.
Because there's going to be a can shortage. You verified that is coming?
It's already been happening, and there's no sort of sense it's going to get better. And the reason is kind of funny. There are all these additional beverages that have come on the market, like sparkling hard seltzer, that are using up, they become very popular out of nowhere, and they are using up part of that aluminum can supply. And with all the other issues that are going on in the world, there's just a huge supply and demand imbalance. So all of the people who are using aluminum for various products, including can manufacturers, are having a hard time getting those aluminum cans. I mean, it is, I giggle because it's just so silly, but this is what happens when you're a central planner and you think you can turn on and off the economy like you're power cycling a modem. The rest of us have figured out you can't do this, and now we're paying the price for all of this, literally.
So, Carol, I don't have time this time, but could I ask you to do some research for me? I am concerned about energy and generators. In California, they've already said no gasoline generators, nothing.
Yeah.
And, your power goes out. How do you generate power? And I'm looking not just for today, but what is going to be taxed out of or, regulated out of existence in the next 3 years for power generation. Can you look into that, and then we'll have you back?
I absolutely would be happy. Love the homework.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, I love it. Listen,
better you than me, Carol.
You're providing real value to your listeners. These are actionable. This isn't just theory. These are actionable things that people can do to make sure that they're surviving, to make sure that their lives aren't disrupted. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
She is the author of The War on Small Business. It is a must-read. You want to understand what's happening. A former investment banker, CarolRoth.com. CarolRoth.com. We'll talk again, Carol. Thank you so much.